Welcome to What's Cooking in Sports with former NFL defensive end Gary Burley. Now get ready to find out what's up, what's in, and what's going down in sports with some of the biggest names on the field, on the court, and in the business. Gary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Isis. Welcome to What's Cooking in Sports. On today's show, Lionel James is going to give you an update on the current status of Auburn football. Also, former Auburn players who left their blood, sweat, and tears on the field are going to give you kind of an update of what's going on as well. And in the kitchen, Coach Chef Leroy is going to cook up something special just for you today. Sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy the show. We'll be right back.
Okay, you ready? Surprise. Yeah! Wait for me.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daddy?
Yeah?
The power of yeah.
Yeah.
Brought to you in part by Alabama Power. Always on.
Something to amaze me. That's when it happened. Right in front of me.
You haven't seen it until you've seen it in Charter HD. Call now to add Charter HD for only $5 more a month and watch all your favorite programs in HD. Charter, let it all in.
Oh, what's cooking?
Hello, welcome back. Lionel James here. Last week on the show, we talked about mainly Alabama football, and they still rank number one in the BCS ranking. This year, I want to focus on Auburn University, and that's why I wore my Auburn University shirt and my coat to show my loyalty to my team. In the paper today, I read, and I want to comment about this. It's easy to get to the top. And supposedly it's hard to fall down to the bottom. But if you can understand football, and the reason you play the football game is to win the game. Looking over some stats, what I found out was that in 1938, TCU won the national championship. In the next 2 years, 39 and 40, they went 6 and 14, which is the fastest drop from the top of the mountain in college football. Right behind was Michigan State. Now, here's my point, because Michigan State is very comparable to Auburn with some of the players that they had at the time in 1966. Michigan State won the national championship. The next 2 years, 67 and 68, they went 8 and 12, which is a 400% winning percentage. Now, they lost 6 players to the NFL. The number one player drafted that year was a guy by the name of Bubba Smith, Hall of Fame guy, all-time great, Hollywood superstar. Been around, you know it. In that same mode of team building, what you had, Gene Chizik had the same thing. And what he had, I hope you guys can see this, and I hope it comes in. They had a great guy. In the same mode of Michigan State, Cam Newton, he went first overall pick. Now, along with Cam Newton was a guy by the name of Nick Fairley. Last week, I read a quote out of the newspaper that said from players, we have no leadership on the team. And as you think about that statement with the leadership, you automatically go to the head coach, because when you think about who's running that team, who's in charge of it, the head coach is always in charge of it. All right, but now let me add something to that. In Auburn's situation right now, which is more comparable to Michigan State in '66, they had the number one guy who, at that time, we would liken him to Superman, quarterback. And on defense, they had a guy named Nick Fairley. All right, those two guys went first round. You lose those two guys. Those are basically your coaches on the field. When players look around it is very hard to get information from the coaches on the sideline unless there's a timeout. Now, when you got a guy like Cam Newton on the field, everybody is looking for that kind of guy to stand up, make a play, or pull me out of that mistake I just made. Same thing on defense. They had a guy named Nick Fairley to pull them out of that funk that they were, whatever they was doing in the game. For example, i.e., the Alabama game that year that they won the national championship. They're down 20-something points, and they come back to win that game. What do they look at first? They look at the guys that lead on the team. Now, that takes me to another area. And the first thing that when you listen to or talk to the Auburn generation or the Auburn nation, as I like to call it, is that we tend to look within ourselves to find out what the problem is. Yes, we want to solve that, but let's find out what that problem is. In the National Football League, what we have is a slogan that's called NFL, not for long. If you're losing, you're out of there. All right. Now, along with being in the National Football League, everyone throughout the National Football League has talent on every team, so it becomes coaching. When you come back to college teams, it is not so much about coaching, but who has the best players. Now, at this point, the first thing I've heard lately is that we go back to Tuberville, and what Gene Chiswick is playing with right now is a bunch of redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomores, and now he doesn't have the senior quality leadership that he needs on the football field. And at this point, it really seems like that. Now, what Auburn can do right now, in my opinion, and it's not about maybe saving the season, because still, no matter what you do, it's only one game at a time. And why do you play the game? You play the game to win the game. And what's the most important game? The next game. Okay, now, if I'm Gene Chiswick, here's what I do. I take my playmakers and maybe the young guys that are making a stance to make a move towards next year, I start to play them. I don't necessarily want to make this a spring practice kind of thing, because remember, we still want to win the game. Now, I would take my guys like Blake at wide receiver. I would take Mason at running back, and I would dabble in there a little bit of McCaleb, and I would throw the ball some, but I would get back to smash mouth football. I think the concentration now should be focused mainly on the offensive line. All right, because as you go, the offensive line goes. And then now, it seems now that once something breaks down, everybody kind of goes in the tank. And it's kind of hard to come out of the tank in a 60-minute game and push and go. All right, now, I go back and I play smash mouth football. I put Mason in, I put McCaleb in, and maybe I go to some type of I-type backfield, and I just run traditional SEC football, which means now, in the words of Coach Dye, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to run it over the right guard. I'm going to tell you on defense that I'm running it over the left guard, and now it's up to you to stop me. So now we're into a matter of Auburn needs to go into attitude and physicality. All right? Attitude means that I want to win it so bad that I am trying all my might until I die. Give it to them and play smash mouth football. On defense, there's a bunch of guys on that side of the football that are basically, what you would call no-name guys. All right? Now, yes, they're young, but now when you play smash mouth football, put them in a 3-4, put them in a 4-3, you take that gap, I take this gap, linebacker fill that gap, scrape, you want to play it. And then now, let's play physical SEC football. Now, when all else fails, and now we cannot win a game, then now you got to approach it where I have got to start performing with my younger guys. Once I start performing with my younger guys, now The thing that goes with playing with younger guys the year before the next is this. Now you've gotten those guys quality rep time. And what I mean by that is that they're not in the game as a mop-up kind of thing. Or the game is over with, the score is 40-0 or 30-0 or anything like that. And then now the guys that you're basically are just running the clock out. You can get those guys quality time. You can get them to start learning key positions. You can get them to start knowing how to talk to each other, knowing how to live with each other. And then once you get the idea of who can do what, then now the most important thing you can get out of that is once you figure out that a guy can learn his position and he starts to learn the scheme of what the coaches are trying to teach overall, then now you have the possibility of a guy being able to play two positions at one time. Now, what I mean by that is this. Once I know my position, I can become a Lawrence Taylor type guy. In other words, a guy that can put so much pressure on the end that he can drop back in the flat and knows exactly when to do that. Those are the kind of players that you look for in the SEC. Now, all of that being said, I come back to you still got to have senior-oriented teams to be able to win in the SEC. If you look around, you look at Alabama, you look at Florida, you look at South Carolina, those Georgia, those upper echelon teams in the SEC, and see who is playing. They are predominantly senior teams. What does a senior team do? It provides you on the field. It provides you a guy that not only in practice, where the only person that is shouting, screaming, fussing, cussing, blowing the whistle, hitting you with the strap, doing whatever, is that coach on the sideline. And he is teaching you that during the week. Once the game starts, you need a guy on the field to become that coach. Now, if you're not a senior-oriented team or a junior, and even possibly a sophomore that's becoming a junior, someone that's vocal or someone that maybe leads by example. Doesn't have to be a screamer. Doesn't have to be a guy that just shouts. Doesn't have to be a physically intimidating looking guy. Just a guy that does his job well. Now, that's what Auburn needs. Now, they do not, once again, have this guy on the field at quarterback. They do not have Nick Fairley at defensive tackle. What they need is a person to stand up, maybe not as good, but go out and make a difference in the game, but more so make a difference in the mind of the guys that they're playing with. That's my view on the Skype train, on what's cooking in sports.
When we come back, we're going to talk to former Auburn players Karlos Dansby and Kodi Burns. We're going to find out what they're up to today. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The power of Brought to you in part by Alabama Power. Always on.
Watching, waiting for something to amaze me. That's when it happened. Right in front of me.
You haven't seen it until you've seen it in Charter HD. Call now to add Charter HD for only $5 more a month and watch all your favorite programs in HD. Charter, let it all in.
Oh, what's cooking?
How did you make the decision to go to Auburn versus Alabama?
It was real tough. It was a real tough decision. Coming out of high school at the time, I was playing receiver. I was 186 pounds at the time. Yeah. People don't know that. I was pretty fast, too. I was pretty fast at that time, too. And I just came off like 900 yards receiving that year. And University of Alabama wanted me to play linebacker. And I told them at that time, man, I'm 186 pounds playing SEC, linebacker in SEC. I just didn't see I just didn't have that vision at that time. And went down to Auburn. Auburn gave me an opportunity to play receiver. It only lasted a couple tour days. And once they seen how physical I was, they moved me to the other side of the ball ASAP. And I started out as strong safety.
And that was the best decision?
That was the best decision
for you?
for me. Yes, sir. Definitely the best decision for me to choose Auburn. It's a rivalry, man. And like I said, it's a win-win situation. If you're a kid coming up in high school, it's a win-win situation either way. You just got to go in, stay focused, and go in and handle your business.
How did you develop this systematic approach to success, man?
A lot of failure. A lot of failure, man, to be honest. Once you try certain things and you get that experience, you know how to work it. God has put people in your path to direct you and lead you in the right way. And like I said, I stayed steadfast to that, kept praying, and things like this right here happened. As much as given, much as expected for you to give back. So, like I said, God gave me everything I have right now. So I have no choice but to give back and just try to lead some of our future, man, and these kids, just try to lead them in the right direction.
Tell me about your charity your nonprofit that you want to start.
I'm definitely going to be Karlos Dansby Foundations. We're going to probably launch this I want to say this fall, this winter. And like I said, starting with the turkey drives, back to school haircuts for kids, like I said, back to school supplies, even trying to, I want to say, form a summit to have different walks of life, success stories for these kids to understand, man, it's not all about playing sports. You can have different avenues and you can be successful in anything you do, but you got to keep God first. So that's my goal. And like I said, not only just that, we're going to be touching health issues, obesity, and we're going to be attacking that full steam ahead.
Let you know, this place is gorgeous. How did you guys come up with the concept?
It was just a vision we had. It was a vision we had about bringing something for men to the Birmingham City area, and hopefully it would change the game. And not only change the game, but raise the way men view grooming and how they prepare and take care of themselves for the daily challenges.
Well, you guys got 2 locations now, and what's the plan for the future? Plan
for the future, we have a few more locations in mind, but we're going to slow pace ourselves. We're not going to grow too fast. We want to build our brand. We want to build it here in Birmingham, this being home for us, for me and Chris. And like I said, we could have went anywhere else in the world, but we wanted to bring it here, you know what I'm saying, because we want to start at home and build out, have our foundation set. And that's what we're trying to do right here.
Well, let's start out with how you got to be a coach now, man. Tell us about that.
That's a weird deal, how the Lord works. Something that I've always wanted to do. Had the opportunity to go with Coach Malzahn. The timing couldn't have been better. I just feel like I got a lot to give back to kids and be a great recruiter, a great offensive mind under Coach Borges as well as Coach Tuberville and Coach Malzahn as well. So it's something I've always wanted to do, and I think I'll be good at it. I think the toughest one I played in most definitely was my senior year. Being down 24-0, everybody thinks the game's over. Alabama's obviously a really good team, but somehow we found a way to get it done. I think that's just the Auburn in us. We've been under Kevin Yoxall, our strength and conditioning coach, and it's not over until you get to the 4th quarter. So we definitely took that game to 4 quarters and found a way to win. As soon as the national championship game ended, I went and played an all-star game, thought I was going to do the NFL things, and worked out for some teams, but it just didn't work out, you know. The Lord had a different plan for me, and I didn't get my head down, just kind of took a year off, started working down in Mobile for a little bit, and just crazy how things work. Coach Malzahn had kept talking to me, hey, you should probably think about coaching. You should try to get in coaching. And sure enough, he gets a head job, call him up. He's like, come on with me, man. I want you to come to Arkansas State and start your coaching career out. So that's what I did, and I've been there since January, and I'm enjoying it.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk to Ahmaad Galloway, former Alabama player. He's going to talk a little bit about the ACT, but also there's some new rules out there for NCAA, and all you parents need to hear this information from Robert Viles, Vice President of Education for the NCAA. We'll be right back.
Okay, you ready? Surprise. Yeah! Wait for me.
Come on. Yeah.
Daddy?
Yeah?
The power of yeah.
Yeah.
Brought to you in part by Alabama Power. Always on.
Watching, waiting for something to amaze me. That's when it happened. Right in front of me.
You haven't seen it until you've seen it in Charter HD. Call now to add Charter HD for only $5 more a month and watch all your favorite programs in HD. Charter, let it all in.
Alabama Cable Network Sports presents Football 2012, featuring high school teams from all over Alabama. We'll have live and tape delay college football games. Jacksonville State, North Alabama, West Alabama, and West Georgia will all be featured teams. Alabama Cable Network Sports on Charter Channel 80 is an exclusive presentation of Charter Communications and the Alabama Cable Network.
A partnership with a best friend who was also very serious about education. And so much, by the time he finished Alabama, he was a recruiter for the university, okay? But just having that friendship and just understanding at an early age, because we were both military brats, but understanding that and holding each other accountable to that. So much that even though I was committed to Notre Dame out of high school, he says, let's visit Alabama. It didn't take but one trip. You get there, you see it, and it's everything you want. But, you know, like everything else, you start comparing academic programs, okay? And what a lot of people don't know is, you know, we're a football heavy state, okay? But at our University of Alabama, we take academics very serious. The knowledge, the tools, the resources, people think that these are only available at the high school level. You know, the ACT, depending on how big of a monster you make it, can be the maker or breaker for kids going to college. I've had a chance to teach that course and see once kids get comfortable, first of all, with the format. Okay, some people don't even know what's on the test. You know, first they need to learn the sections. All right, learn the time that you're allotted to take each session, and then practice it. Okay, a lot of things kids don't understand. Small things like health. All right, your health condition can play into it. How do you feel that day? All right, because it's a discipline thing and it is a test. Okay, more so than a test of knowledge, it's a test of discipline. Can you go by this format? Okay, study it, and then come out and be successful. If you do that, the core score that they're asking for is basically a high school level. My father was a retired warrant officer in the Navy. But even then, and as a highly respected officer, I saw too where if I was educated with a college degree, I could afford myself some other opportunities. So thanks to his hard work, I was able to take that and stretch beyond. More importantly than you know, the five-star athlete, like you said, you always have to have that backup plan. But I was also influenced early. Good English teachers, all right? The quality of education. All right, the level of the educators that we're putting in around these kids, that's important. All right, I've always had teachers that allowed me to dream, told me it was okay. Okay, and that's the deal. Especially now in this generation, we have to let them dream. We have to let their minds grow, and we need to do everything we can to put growth into their minds, even if that means implementing programs. Okay, as we're seeing ahead for those that don't make it to the NFL.
We have the honor and pleasure of having two of the principals at the NCAA. Robert Vowell, Vice President of Education Service, and Glenn Cherry, Associate Director. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, thank you. How you doing today?
Well, like I always say, every day above ground is a good day. Listen, guys, let's get right into it. There's some major changes going on in requirements for the upcoming student athletes that are going to be looking for scholarship consideration. Let's walk through the process so we can teach our parents exactly what it is they need to do.
Okay. Basically, as a student athlete is entering high school, we want to make sure that they're academically prepared. We want to make sure that they're taking, core classes. Those classes are those math, science, English, social studies, foreign language, and making sure that those classes that they're taking are college preparatory in nature. That's going to put them, on the road to realizing their hopes and dreams of participating in the sport that they love while pursuing a degree.
That's a key word, pursuing that degree. It's so important that student athletes realize that you just don't go to school to play sports. You go to get that degree, because 20 years from now, that's going to make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the key. The key word in student athlete is the student. We want to make sure that these students are prepared, for the academic rigors on a college campus, and that they're able to transition and move on, get their degree, and possibly pursue a master's or a PhD or in whatever field that they choose.
Well, Robert, I tell you, walk us through the steps of what is it going to take for. I guess these new requirements kick in when? What year?
Yeah, well, they're starting. Now we're trying to get folks on board, but 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16 are when they really go into full effect. And President Emmert, who's been here almost 2 years now, has been very aggressive in this plan, looking at the academic readiness of the student athlete. And that first semester, that first year, that freshman year is awfully important. So he's been looking at what he's called enduring values, and he's got 4 or 5 things he's been focusing on. One is student athlete success, and that's what we're talking about right now. Number 2 is protecting the collegiate model. Number 3 is amateurism as the student model. And then number 4, the competitive equity. As you know about scholarships, facilities, and escalating salaries are big issues.
Well, I tell you, I can't begin to share with you the way my parents asked me these questions. So I felt like the only thing that I could do to give them a clear-cut, precise vision is to get you guys on the show, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Love to be here. I want to throw a question out to Glenn, and maybe this will help clarify some things for some parents and some student athletes. One, Glenn, talking with the student guidance counselor, how important is that? And then 2, how do you compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges across the board with core courses, academic requirements of the high schools?
Great questions, Robert. The first question is, how important is the school counselor? The school counselor to us is integral. We definitely have to have a partnership and a shared responsibility with the high school. The high school, we have a great need for information from them, from the high school transcript that each student has that follows them, whether they go to one high school or 4 different high schools in their high school career. Also, the need to keep up their NCAA list of courses. And that's what leads into Robert's second question. When we talk about the NCAA list of courses, whether a student completes Algebra 1, whether they complete it at Smith High School or Jones High School, Algebra 1 is Algebra 1. However, each school must have a list of NCAA courses. That's a list that we look at and determine from their school's curriculum what courses meet our legislation as being core to be certified so that these young people can be certified to compete their freshman year. So when we look at that, for a student that goes to 2 different high schools, we're going to look at the transcript from both of those high schools and look at the list from both of those high schools. So if student A went to high school A during their freshman and sophomore year, we're going to look at the list of courses for high school A. If they went to high school B for their junior and senior year, we're going to look at the list of high school B and see what they took at high school B and use those courses to certify them. So it's very important that so for every student that attends multiple high schools, we must have a transcript from every high school that they attended.
Glenn, give us a sample of a course load.
As far as a high school course load?
Well, no, what's expected in college, the freshman year?
Oh, students must complete 12 hours. They must complete 12 credit hours to be eligible their second semester. So to be considered a full-time student, they must complete 12 credit hours.
Okay.
Or 12 quarter hours, depending on if the school is on a semester or quarter system. So, most courses are 3 credit hours, so the typical student will take 4 to 5 courses. As a student athlete in college, I took 15 hours. That way, just in case I did not do well in a certain course, I did have the ability to drop that course to continue to remain eligible and remain a full-time student.
Well, I think we've all been there before.
Of course.
Hey, listen, is there anywhere on your website or whatever that parents could go to and get this information that you're sharing with us today?
Absolutely. They can go to our website, which is www.eligibilitycenter.org. And as they enter, they would enter where it says prospective student athletes, enter here. And in the top right-hand corner, there is a box called resources. That box is key. It has a number of pieces of information that we've put together, the most comprehensive piece being the guide for the college-bound student athlete. It's 22 pages of everything a parent and a student athlete really need to know about the eligibility process, the recruiting process, and what they need to do to really find the college of their choice. That's a big key because if you think about it, 40% of student athletes, by the time they hit a college campus,